All right, let's put on our detective hats. We're about to dive into a mystery that's thousands of years old, a secret hidden inside the Bible that points to a shocking connection with the world of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs.
So that brings us to the big question. Could a key piece of the Bible actually have its roots in an ancient Egyptian scroll? You bet it could. And the story of how we figured that out is an amazing piece of textual detective work.
So our whole puzzle really boils down to two ancient texts. In one corner, you've got a really famous part of the biblical book of Proverbs, and in the other, an even older text full of wisdom from ancient Egypt. Let's get to know them.
Okay, so on one side we have the book of Proverbs, part of the Hebrew Bible's wisdom literature. And on the other side we have the teachings of Amenemope, an Egyptian text filled with ethical advice that's actually way older. For years, scholars kept noticing that one part of Proverbs sounded, well, a lot like Amenemope. The big question was, just how deep did this connection actually go?
All right, so the first major clue, it all comes down to just one single kind of tricky word in the book of Proverbs. A word that sent scholars on a hunt that lasted for centuries trying to figure out what it really meant.
You know, if you pick up a modern Bible and flip to Proverbs chapter 22, you're gonna see this verse. The author says, "Hey, I wrote 30 sayings for you." Seems simple enough, doesn't it? Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Because here's the twist. When you go back to the original Hebrew manuscripts, that word we now translate as 30, it's not so clear. Not at all. In fact, for literally hundreds of years, ancient scribes and modern scholars were just kind of stumped.
Okay, this is so cool. What you're looking at is the heart of the problem. The actual written text, what they call the Kettiv, has a word that means something like ancient things. But the scribes who copied the text weren't totally sure, so in the margin, they suggested another reading, the Quire, which means noble things. See what's missing? Yeah, neither of those means 30.
And just to make things even crazier, when the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek, that's the Septuagint, they read the word as three things. So now we've got ancient things, noble things, and three things, none of which is 30. The trail had pretty much gone cold.
That is, until scholars decided to take another look at that Egyptian text. And guess what? The teachings of Amenemope is laid out in exactly 30 chapters. That was the breakthrough moment. The answer wasn't in the Hebrew text itself, it was sitting right there in this Egyptian scroll all along.
So this led scholars to do something called creative emendation. Basically, they said, look, with this new evidence, it's pretty clear the original Hebrew word was supposed to be a version of the word for 30, shaloshim. The structural parallel was just too perfect to ignore. So case closed on that one. But, as you can imagine, solving one mystery just opened up a new one.
Yeah, you solve one puzzle and another one pops up. This next clue is, well, it's a little weird. It's about a proverb that just shows up twice, almost identically, just a few verses apart. I mean, take a look at this. In Proverbs 22, you get this warning, do not remove the ancient landmark. Simple enough. But then, bam, just 12 verses later in chapter 23, you get it again, with a slight tweak. Now, this is really unusual. In a collection of wise sayings like this, repeating yourself so obviously is just strange.
So that's the big question for us as detectives, right? Was this just a copy and paste error? Did some ancient scribe just get distracted? Or, and this is the exciting part, was this repetition on purpose? Was it a clue left behind for us to find?
Well, to figure this out, we have to go back to our main person of interest here, the teachings of Amenemope. It turns out, the answer to this weird repetition is hiding in plain sight in the Egyptian blueprint.
And there it is, chapter 6 of Amenemope. What's it about? The exact same thing. It's a warning against moving boundary markers to steal land, especially from vulnerable people like widows. The connection is already super strong, but the real mind-blowing part is what comes next.
This is the smoking gun, people. The author of Amenemope doesn't just warn against moving landmarks once. In that single chapter, the idea is repeated at least 4 times. It wasn't a mistake. It was a style, a literary technique they used on purpose for emphasis.
So let's just lay all the evidence out here. It's really clear. Both texts have the same rule. Don't move landmarks. Both give the same kind of reason why God is on the side of the vulnerable. And, this is the clincher, both use the exact same literary technique of repetition. The parallel is just undeniable.
So here's the bottom line. The writer of Proverbs wasn't just lifting an idea.
They were looking at this Egyptian text, seeing how it worked, and then adopting its literary style. That repetition wasn't sloppy work. It was a conscious, creative decision.
So what's the final verdict from our little investigation? Well, it's not a simple case of plagiarism or copying. No way. It's something way more cool and sophisticated than that. It's a creative adaptation.
Let's break down how this probably happened. Step 1. The Israelite author reads this popular, well-respected Egyptian text. Step 2. They notice the clever literary tricks, like using repetition for emphasis. And Step 3. They take that technique and use it to craft their own proverbs, tailored specifically for their own community. It's brilliant, really.
So why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway? Well, it shows us that the book of Proverbs wasn't written in some isolated bubble. It was part of a huge international exchange of ideas happening all across the ancient world. The biblical authors weren't just scribes. They were skilled literary artists, taking the best ideas from the world around them and weaving them into something totally new. And when you understand that, it just adds a whole other layer of depth and appreciation to the text.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on, doesn't it? This whole story is about wisdom crossing borders, about one culture learning from another to create something new and powerful. So if they could do that thousands of years ago, what does that say about the walls we sometimes put up between different ideas and different people today? Definitely something to think about.